All right. Once again, welcome everyone. My name is Andres. I'm a JP here for the admissions department. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll be moderating. I will not be speaking too much on my experiences. I really want to highlight that of our panelists here today. And I'm just going to go ahead and point out a few or let themselves unmute. I guess we can start with Richard. If you want to go ahead and talk to us, maybe just a little bit about your background, what you did before you came to the day school, and what you're working on now as a student.
Yeah, so my path is definitely kind of weird. When I was 18, I joined the Army. I was a signal intelligence analyst. I got out in 2015, then worked for a while as a cable installer, then decided to go back to school, got my associates at a community college, transferred to California State University, Long Beach, where I got my bachelor's in journalism. In 2020, right before I graduated, I got into photography. I took some photos during the protests in 2020 that went viral, and that kind of thrust me into the world of freelance photojournalism. And I've been doing that for about yeah, 4.5 years now. So my path has been kind of weird. Um, and then I was working part time minimum wage and then doing freelance for a long time, which isn't great, mostly in the LA Long Beach area. So I decided to apply to Berkeley. I'd been back and forth on it for a few years. Then I finally applied, and well, yeah, I got in. So yeah, I'm also the veteran. If there's other veterans in here that want to ask any questions about that, it's a pretty simple process, but it's got its own challenges. There's not a lot of us in journalism as a whole. There's only one other person in our cohort that I know about that's also a veteran. I know of one other that's a second year. So we kind of stick together and we can figure out the veteran side stuff. Yeah. And then, yeah, you have any questions for me? I'm a photographer, so that's what like the smallest group. So if there's anyone else that's looking to do that, I can try to answer any questions that I can. So
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to Lisa.
Hey everyone, I'm Lisa. I use she, her pronouns, and I came to Berkeley journalism after a 10-year career in like advertising and marketing. When I was an undergrad long ago in Chicago, I decided to go into something I thought would pay as a writer. So I looked into advertising and I found it to be like a really fun career. So I did a couple of stints at like large and small agencies in Chicago, eventually went freelance and then moved to San Francisco 5 years ago. Then when I moved to San Francisco, I started working for Slack. So love it or hate it. People tend to have strong opinions, but I kind of accidentally got into tech, but doing the same thing, marketing and selling things. And I realized that I wanted to try to do something a little more meaningful with my writing. I'd always been interested in journalism. I did it in middle school and high school and college. I worked on like our honors program newsletter. And had kind of been like on the fringes of looking into journalism. And I decided to go to Berkeley in grad school to because I didn't think I could figure it out on my own. I really wanted to make a career switch and make those connections. And what drew me to Berkeley was its 2-year program. I'm in my second year, and I just felt like I would have a lot more space to explore and try new things. So I'm on the narrative track, but this semester I'm taking an audio and a social media video class. So that's just a little bit why I chose like this specific school, and I'm happy to talk more about that.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So we're going to go ahead and move over to Robert if you want to talk a little bit about your experience.
Well, I'm about as non-traditional as you can get, I think. Although my two friends here, and I want to say to this is that I'm in a class. I'm in the audio class with Lisa, and I done stuff with Richard already here, and it's when you come here, this is what happens to you. You meet these people, and they're incredibly talented, much more than I, and diverse as well. I don't mean diverse in the traditional sense of diversity. I mean just interesting, in and of themselves diverse. Um, so I came to Berkeley in 1973. I came right out of college. I went to school in Minnesota, and I came to graduate school here. And I did what you did in Berkeley in those days. I dropped out. So anyway, I had a real career. I had a journalistic career. I'm now a historian. I write American history books, and I do talks. And so I'm sort of the stand-up historian. I try to make history fun. But in any case, I I looked last year at applying to fellowships. My wife had the journalistic fellowship at Stanford, and it was a great thing back in 25 years ago. And so I applied to a fellowship at Stanford, another one at CUNY. And then as I was doing that, I decided, well, what would Berkeley do for me? So I emailed the dean. I think it was a two-sentence email. And this came to that. She put me to somebody, and they talked to somebody else and talked to somebody else. And nonetheless, here I am, 50 years of a leave of absence later. And I'm on the audio track, so to speak. And being my age, technology is somewhat of a roadblock, I would say. But but the other thing I like about this program is that there are about 50 of us in every class, more or less, and I don't know. You get to know people the same way you would if you were in a job. I would say, and like I say, they're they are incredibly smart and incredibly helpful, as is the faculty thus far that I see. So that's my start, and I'll wait till whatever else we talk about.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, Robert kind of mentioned it is that to give a little bit of a background for those who may not have looked too much into our programs, we have 5 tracks. So those break down to the narrative track, which tends to be our most popular one. Then we have our audio and multimedia tracks. We have our photo track, and then we have our documentary track. And every year we admit around 55 to 60 individuals. And it really is a great opportunity these next coming years for enrollment and for financial aid, because we recently received the largest ever donation to the J School, which is dedicated to just helping out students. So we really push for students to take advantage of that. And on top of all that, our students come from so many different places. So like Robert is from Philadelphia, Lisa from Chicago, Richard from the southern part of California, but everywhere pretty much for him. And we really want to reach out to students and folks who are interested who may not have been straight out of college. Like I graduated from Berkeley, and then I pretty much applied immediately and got into the J School, but that isn't always everyone's experience. So we really want to hold that space. So this is going to be a question that's going to be directed to anyone. Feel free to keep your answer short or as long as you'd like. But the question is, what was the biggest shift or thing that you had to deal with coming back to school, having already started a career or having already started like a life outside of academics? What would be that biggest shift or that biggest point that you had to reacclimate yourself to? It looks like Richard is ready to go, so feel free and unmute yourself, Richard.
Yeah. So just also diversity was mentioned. Despite this panel, the J School is incredibly diverse. I know it might not look that way with the 4 of us here, but about half of our cohort in the first years are international students, and it's just very diverse. So please don't think that, we all look like this. But yeah, so for me, just coming from already working professionally in the field, freelancing in the LA area, the hardest part for me was just, I had started my career. I was still early career, still am early career, but I lost all my contacts and all my, basically my entire network in LA to come here. But for me, it was worth it just because this is conversations I've had with a lot of people here is that, at least for me, I'm not here to learn to be a journalist or a photojournalist or a photographer or anything like that. I am here for the networking opportunities that you can really only get as a student and as a master's student. It's kind of incredible. I've only been here for at least in the J school for about 2 months now, and I'm already doing freelance work and meeting connections like Lisa, who might be able to set me up with other photo work. And as a photographer, it's probably a lot different than being a writer. I don't really know how that is. I'm sure other people can elaborate better on that than me. But that for me, that's been my biggest challenge, and that was kind of the hardest part for me was giving up the career I already established in the geographic area.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to add? Okay, Robert, let me go ahead. Oops, sorry. One more time, Robert. Robert, you're muted.
Oh
There.
my God. You have to press it twice, two different choices. Anyway, uh, there's the faculty too. Now, Lisa, the class that Lisa and I am in together is run by the guy who's sort of the adjunct in the class is the head of KQED News. The woman who is the professor was an NPR reporter, but she started the program Code Switch. She's very accomplished and really smart.
Yeah.
And there's another professor here who has 4 Pulitzers. Where are you going to find that somewhere? You know what I mean? One of the classes I take, it's hard to call it a class, is 10 of us go to San Quentin prison and on Sundays and help the inmates with their newspaper and podcasts and video stuff. Now, I came here for life experiences, just like Richard's saying. I didn't need a job. I don't need a job now, but I want to learn how to do stuff in audio for my career. I sort of look at the intersection of audio and history, sort of quasi journalism. But so, and they're willing to help me do this. And it seems so strange after 50 years of 2 careers to come back to school. But to answer Andreas' question, what is the thing that's unusual? I'm at school. I have to learn how to be at school, and which is, harder than learning how to be at work at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Yeah, and then the professor that Robert is mentioning is Shireen Marisol Meraji, who is a phenomenal professor and really professor and reporter who has been working on different projects with like NPR, Code Switch, etc. So highly recommend that you check her out. Lisa, did you want to add on to that point?
Yeah, Robert, I really identified with the hardest part of going back to school is very different from work. And I think journalism school is a unique grad program. I had a lot of friends who went to grad school, and they would have to schedule their lives around writing papers and doing a lot of reading. And journalism is a profession of doing. Like, I would not say that this it's like not academically challenging, and I don't mean that that I'm not being challenged, but it's really not like schoolwork. It's like go out and figure out how to do this. So that I think the biggest transitions for me have been just a new kind of cadence of scheduling, working around classes and working around assignments when I've been in like a more traditional 9 to 5. I commute from San Francisco, so that was a little bit of that's been, interesting to work my life around. I don't have PTO anymore. That sucks, but that's okay. It's just like different. But it's almost not what I expected given other people's experience at grad school. I'm not writing 14-page papers, but I am working on assignments. And I think there's just an emotional component of having somewhat established myself in my career and coming to school and being a little humbled. Um, Robert and I are in this audio class, and it can be really some of these things. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And, I just like kind of having to get over that ego, like change, was a big deal. And it's going, but like all the students like have been very supportive, and so many of us are going through the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a great jumping off point of like talking about finding that balance, even though sometimes balance sometimes equates to 50-50. Sometimes a week is going to be 90% reporting, 10% social life. Other times, maybe the scales go the different way. Um, Maybe let me ask you, Lisa, is what does, as a second year, or having already done your first year, now as a second year, what does it kind of look like for you to, what classes, how much time you're spending in classes versus balancing that with how many hours you're going to work for, like maybe an outside job or a reporting job, um, that you want to bring up and mention.
Yeah, I actually kind of took a lighter class load this semester because through some of the opportunities actually that Berkeley set up, I have some freelance work. And I was like, oh, well, this is great. Like that's what I'm here to do, is to make these connections and do some freelance work. So I know there was a question about how many hours like working outside of school. It can depend on the week. I would say probably Richard and I are probably on the same kind of cadence, like maybe 10 to 15. It kind of depends on the week. Um, did I answer your question, Andres? I
Yeah,
feel like I
I mean,
deviated a little bit. Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
so I just, because like I think my first year was really, really school focused and really kind of got to like acclimate to this environment and like learn to be a journalist, which I didn't really know how to do. And then they kind of set me up. I had my summer internship where I was like more of a practicing journalist and got more opportunities. And now I just feel a little more relaxed about the school side of it because I'm like, oh, this is getting me where I want to go.
Thank you. Awesome. So let me ask Richard a question. So Richard, uh, at the very beginning, you mentioned that you are a veteran. What was the application process like for you? And there's some questions and I'm sure you remember your application, some questions in your application that ask about your personal experience or your history, your personal history statement and your statement of purpose. Um, did you feel like your time in the military um, prepared you at all for becoming a journalist or navigating these realms of answering these questions?
Yeah, so my military experience specifically was probably more related than most people that are in the military. Like I said earlier, I did signal intelligence. And so my whole job then was data analysis and writing reports on that. So when I got out, uh, they give you a list of things that are like compatible careers for your MOS or your military occupational specialty. And journalist was one of them, or reporter, I think specifically is what it was. So at least with that, I had some experience in tight deadlines and writing and researching. But even then, I didn't immediately go into this career field. As soon as I got out, I kind of found my way back into it. I had an interest in it before. I guess for the application process, I guess it didn't seem I had clips. I'd already been working for 4 years, and I got my bachelor's in journalism. But as far as personal statements, I'm not sure if it's any different. I guess I just kind of related a lot of my the work I'd done previously, along with you know uh, I guess how the military kind of prepared me for working on tight deadlines and using a sob story for my personal essay, just being honest, that does help if you want to do it. Like, talk about your adversity. Berkeley specifically is very good about being very holistic with their applications. There's a lot of people here that have no experience in journalism. Yeah, exactly. And there's people like Robert who have more than probably our entire cohort combined experience. So, just be yourself and say the reasons why you would be a good fit, I guess is the best way. What makes you special, what makes you unique. And it does not have to be about journalism. It could just be why you deserve to tell stories or why you think that you can tell stories different than everybody else.
Yeah,
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
we're all journalists. I love how y'all are like, did that answer your question? When you're doing an interview with someone, like an actual interview with someone, they're not asking you, did I answer your question? They're like, okay, there, done. I've given you all the information. It reminds me of the 45-minute interview I gave today spontaneously. Um, so I'm gonna move on to Robert. All right, Robert. So Um, uh, Not to air too much of our conversation we had earlier today, but I want to touch upon the point that you moved from Philadelphia, you moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. So a completely new atmosphere. I know you still had ties to California, but given how you aren't necessarily the same demographic as most of the student body, how was it
Mhm.
like for you to find like that supportive community and like that space of other students to like work with? Like what has that process and that experience been like for you as
Right. Well, I mean, I had no clue when I came here what it was going to be like. I mean, I was here. People will ask me, "Well, how is it different than you were here 50 years ago?" And I said, I just sort of shrugged my shoulders. I don't really remember. Um, but well, coming from the other side of the country without my family's all back there. I'm going back this weekend for my 55th high school reunion. So, but in any case, what I sort of revel in is that the people who gave me an opportunity to do something they haven't given anybody else to. I mean, yes, they've had people who had some experience, and there are people in their 30s, like my friends up here, but there isn't anybody here in their 70s like me. And so I think also what they wanted in me in this program is to sort of be a extra mentor to people, to say like, this is what I did, or calm down. This assignment isn't that important. You'll get it through it, or whatever it is. I sort of, I formed a intramural tennis team. Like I want to make sure that everybody has this sort of togetherness kind of thing. And you can go off on your own, obviously, and do whatever you want. But I think that they also have a woman here who sort of finds internships and jobs for you. It's like, I mean, you could do it on your own, but just that they have somebody for 100 people. I mean, it's pretty good. And of course the other professors also, they've been in the business. I mean, David, the guy with the 4 Pulitzers, was at the New York Times and the Tampa Bay Tribune. I'm sure if you wanted to get an interview there, he could find you somebody to do that. Uh, Shireen says to me, I was looking at what I'm going to do next summer, and she said, "Oh, I know X. I'll call her up." You know what I mean? Without even being prompted to do it. They're here. Everybody's here to help you. Your fellow students and your teachers, and then you have all these sort of other things. Like today, we had a Zoom call with people who were covering the Gaza-Israel conflict. I mean, that in of itself, you could go or not go, but it was well attended, and everybody's sort of interested in. If you're a journalist, you've got to be interested in what other journalists do, for God's sakes. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. So, yeah, Robert briefly mentioned our career advisor, Betsy Raitt, who is an amazing career and readiness counselor. It truly does not put into words. You can speak to any second year, any first year. She is working, even though she works remotely from Los Angeles, she is constantly updating us in our Slack, in emails, to like notify us there's an internship opportunity here, there's full-time jobs here, there's part-time jobs, there's opportunities for funding, there's this, there's that, and the third. And she is definitely like, I think a really big resource for a lot of students on campus to be able to start to think about their careers and start to think about what paths to make way. And Robert also mentioned we have David Barstow, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning a reporter. He is a part of the team that runs the investigative reporting program, which is a reporting, think of it as like a newsroom, as like a but not breaking news. They're doing investigative reports. They're looking into stories, and they're associated here at Berkeley, teaching classes as well. But they also have their own independent projects that students can also work on. So great points to all of that. Before I move on with my own questions, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask to our panelists? You're free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. If not, I can continue with a few other questions for our panelists. All right. Oh, go ahead. I can't really see the screen, but Dan, I see you right from right here. So go ahead, Dan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just thought that'd be
You're good.
faster than doing the raising your hand. Hey, everybody. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to share a little bit about your experience and talking with us. And it's really nice to get to meet you virtually. I was a non-traditional student going into undergrad and um, I've worked in nonprofits for 4 or 5 years previous to starting my undergrad and really didn't like school when I when I got there. And so I'm wondering, just not really having any sense of what any grad program is like. Um, what is it like for you guys day to day, um, or week to week? And how's it, if you can maybe compare your undergrad experience to what your time in grad school is like, I'd love to hear what it's like.
Yeah, so let's have Richard go ahead on, and we'll have Richard and then Lisa to provide that point of view.
Yeah, so I did journalism for undergrad. So for me, at least as a first year, first semester student, it's not much different than I guess the classes I took at the end of my bachelor's program. But I would say it is a bit more focused here. Me and Robert actually worked together our first week during orientation. They call it boot camp, and we produce a story within, what was that, 72 hours, basically, with photos and video interviews. It's hopefully getting published here in a few days. We'll see. But yeah, so you start working immediately. I would say that's kind of the difference here. It's very professional, and I've been talking to other people in other grad programs, and everyone's scurrying around about final or midterms, excuse me. Is like then I was like, I had to ask people like, do we have finals? I have or midterms or finals? I don't think we do. It feels it's very much professional. It feels a lot more like a trade school, to be honest, than a academia kind of grad program. You're not doing a whole lot of what in my head is academia stuff.
Yeah, where I feel like that's a great point to mention where it's a lot more hands-on, it's a lot more working. You learn the skills, yes, but you're really at the very beginning of our at least our first semester, it's the sensation that you're working those skills to like start to develop it. And then I guess Lisa can touch up right now. But as a quick plug, my multimedia project got published in Oakland North. We covered the Oakland Ballers, which was the team that was um, supposed to really revitalize that Oakland baseball spirit. So I'll just put in the chat if anyone wants to know. Lisa, if you would like to provide more of that perspective of like what it's been like for as like a day-to-day basis, what it's kind of like now that you've gone through your first year and into your second.
I really love the analogy of trade school because I think that's very accurate. It really is not traditionally academic here. Your day to day, especially as you continue to move throughout journalism school, is what you want it to be. Something that I constantly hear people say about Berkeley is like, you can get out of this whatever, like, you come here to get whatever you want out of it. So you could come here and like slack off, I guess. I don't know why you would pay money to do that, but like as you start to really understand what types of stories you like to tell, as you really understand what type of skills that you want to learn, you really will tailor your classes and pick your professors and work on projects and stories that interest you, and you're expected to be working on them. Like as a second year, I have a lighter class load because I'm also working on a thesis project, which is I for narrative, mine is going to be three short pieces, and no one is telling me what those have to be. It's very self-generating your own ideas. So I think your day to day is really like whatever you tailor it to. Your first semester is very focused, and Robert and Richard could tell you, and Andreas could say more, but like you have J200, which is like a 6 credit class that is I think it's like the most credits of any of the classes here, and it really does take up, I think, like quite a bit of time as they make sure that you know how to be on the ground reporting. So you don't get as much. Then there's like a law and a research methods class. Like there's a little more requirements, and then you go from there and you really start to delve into your tracks and really like focus and narrow in on what you want to do.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because there is a question in the chat that's asking, and this is for all our panelists, whoever's comfortable to answer. We'll have, I guess, one person if they can really detail it. What the documentary track is like at the J School versus a Master in Fine Arts that's offered at other institutions. So, does the master's is the master's in journalism here at the J School, and focusing on documentary? How different is it to like a documentary or a master's of film art degree? I don't know if anyone can talk about that. I know that there's no documentarians here, and but if no one feels comfortable, I'm comfortable answering that question too. Um, so to give a quick rundown of that, the first of all, the master's in the documentary track is much more focused on that journalism aspect. There is some type of story, there's some type of reporting. You're focusing on something that's going on. And typically, because it is a documentary, you are prolonging that discussion. You're prolonging, or not prolonging, but you're really diving deep into that, those video segments, learning the skills, the basics of documentary filmmaking. That is the really big thing of like how to set up lights, how to use mics, how to edit stuff that for documentary filmmaking. For individuals who may have already gotten like their bachelor's in filmmaking, these things are going to be slightly repetitive at the very beginning, but it is then starting to go deeper into how do you start doing these investigative things? How do you start creating visualizations to make things more accessible in different formats, as compared to like a master's in fine arts degree in documentary from like Stanford or USC. They still have those like fine arts like elements and how to make it their own like program in the sense of stylistically, and but it's still encompassing, at least from what I can view as being a part of the admissions department, um, that these documentaries or those documentaries are more of like a subset of like, okay, I'm getting a master's in fine art in general, and then documentary is attached to that. Here, we're really putting that priority on you're a journalist first, but you have the skill set to produce documentaries and produce really good documentaries at the end of that. Another point I should touch on that is the documentary track here. It's being revamped. So typically in the past, students have been told that you can apply into the program and you can more or less feel it out for like the first semester. However, we really do encourage people now that because of how intensive the documentary track is, from day one, you get a giant equipment package, which every doc student will be able to tell you, rolling it around, having all this camera gear, and you're really diving deep into like having to start to create stories and get the ball rolling. And it's not so easy for a student to be like, okay, I don't want to do photo anymore. I want to do documentary. So from the very beginning, highlight those parts that in your application, showcasing that as a documentary student, you either have had filmmaking experience or you've had experience with like video editing. Like those are really going to stand out. And the admissions committee really keep an eye out. And same thing with other of the tracks. If you're a photojournalist already, or maybe you just did wedding photography, for example, highlight that. If you did data analysis for a research project, but you're never a journalist, highlight that portion and showcase these other skills. Okay, to take the attention off of me now, we're going to recenter it back on everyone else, because if you have more questions regarding that, we have our general information webinars, as well as every Friday, we have our JPeer chats where you can speak more one-on-one with me and my fellow JPeer Ruchi, on like literally what should I write in my in my essay, and we'll try and work with you to see like what really spawns an idea wise, as well as what to make for like your interview session, but that can be saved off to another time. Dan, you had a question. Feel free to go ahead.
Hey, sorry to just maybe to get ahead of some of my own questions. Is there an example? I haven't dug that deep, to be honest, but is there an example curriculum for year one and year two on your website somewhere where you can kind of look over based on your track with the classes you'd be in?
Yes, there is. So feel free. I'll also put it in the chat, but on the Berkeley Journalism School website, we have the section where it says our programs. go to our programs offered, and then it'll show the coursework. But first, you have to select which track that you're looking at. If you're looking into like the multimedia track, click on that, and then it'll show the coursework of this is what's required for you to take as a multimedia student. And then what I would suggest is that you jump over to the courses page, because you do have to fulfill certain requirements for that track. But like Richard can attest to this, the photography track doesn't have that many requirements. See, 3 requirements, but you're able to elect to take, let's say, an investigative reporting class, or if you want to go delve deeper into like environmental and climate studies, that's also an option that you're able to undergo. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, no problem. So a question for the entire group. So as students here at the J School, what has been 2 things? What has been something that you've surprised yourself with already, having learned at the J School? And what's something that you want to keep on working on so far that you, this is not to end the conversation, but what's like surprised you so far that you've been able to like achieve? And what's something that you want to continue working on so far? We'll start with Robert.
Well, let me say something else. I've also been familiar with other J School programs. Many of my friends went to Columbia and Northwestern. I taught at Penn, so I knew, I knew people. I mean, some of my students became journalists, and I taught at Delaware, and all those places are a little different and less. I don't know. Well, if you want to be in New York, Columbia's, I would presume, the place to be, except that they have internships in New York out of here, too. But anyway, what surprised me, I suppose, it surprised me how little I knew. I mean, I know what I know. I know, how to be a reporter, a print reporter. But I came here not, I didn't figure I needed to know much about that. The other thing, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up here is one of the things that they encourage you to do, or at least they're encouraging me to do, is find people around the university that have nothing to do with journalism. I'm doing a seminar. I'm not a seminar. I'm taking a class from Robert Reich, who used to be the Secretary of Labor. I've met with 2. I'm auditing a history class this time and another history class next time. Andreas can tell you about all the Nobel Prize winners and their free parking spaces. But if you wanted to talk to one of those Nobel Prize winners, I suppose you could. I mean, I haven't tried, but there's no reason that they would say no to you. Although they did say no to you, right?
Well, I put a sticky note on their car, so it's completely fair that a Nobel laureate wouldn't want to talk to me. Let's go ahead and move on to
Lisa.
Now that is like true reporting. Something that surprised me is I like didn't know if I could do this. And I got a summer internship and I started getting clips and I've had real opportunities with real editors. And it's like, oh, I did it. Like, I guess maybe I wasn't sure that I could do it and I am doing it. And obviously that's the point of why we're here. But I sort of thought like I would graduate first before those opportunities came up. So I've just been really pleasantly surprised with how quickly I was able to kind of be part of this world and meet editors and meet new people. Something that I'm continuing to learn is how to be a better writer and how to really, really, really know when something is a story. That's just like a constant, it's really drilled into our head. What elevates an idea from just being a topic or something interesting to something that is like truly going to get bought by an editor or make a compelling story. Continuing to learn that.
Yeah, thank you. So, Richard, would you like to go ahead and yeah.
Yeah, I'd say kind of just to continue on Lisa's point there. I guess I was quite surprised how fast things happen. At least I came from this already having a background in the industry, so I was kind of expecting that I would find some work here. as a freelance photographer. But there are so many people I know that don't have experience that are doing published work, that are getting paid, that are, within 2 months now are technically speaking working professional journalists. They're getting published in different Bay Area things. There's people that are pitching to national organizations, national news organizations. So it's a lot different than my undergrad, where everyone was just trying really hard to get into the student newspaper. Here, within 6 months, within by your first semester, there's a good chance you'll get published in at least some of the local outlets, Oakland side or Berkeley side. You could get published in SF Gate or the San Francisco Chronicle. Some people, I think, I don't know about for the second years. I think some people have been published in like the New York Times, right? Some of the second year people have. Was that during their first year, maybe? Um,
Um, there was one instance where someone had done an investigative report on, I believe, police involvement with the January 6th insurrection, and then that eventually got cascaded into um the whole investigative reporting program spiel with the New York Times. Another individual did work on a nonprofit in the Richmond area that ended up having very interesting financial dealings and relationship. It was a whole like soap opera moment, but that ended up also being published nationwide with the New York Times. So yeah, there's opportunities for that.
yeah, so I'd say that was the biggest surprise for me. It was just how big your stories can be coming out of here, which is not something that it was like when I did undergrad and not something I was ever going to do at my old job. So, but yeah, now having the opportunity to do these big be take photos for me specifically of these big investigative pieces that are going out of the investigative reporting program that go in ProPublica or the New York Times or just these giant organizations.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So really good points. Now let's bring it back to your unique experiences. So, I guess as a question to everyone as well, if there was something that you would have wanted to tell your I guess younger self, or the person who was applying into the J school, having been a working professional, having someone who has already had like a career for a little bit or working down that path, what's a piece of advice that you would give them to starting their application, or like the content that they should really highlight in their application that you think goes a long way to showcasing them as an excellent candidate? We'll give it a second. Give it a second to seep in there. All right. Anyone want to go first? Richard?
I guess I'm just the canary in the coal mine here. For me, the biggest advice I would have given myself is just you have to network. Like this industry is all it's not great to say, but this industry isn't really about your talent or what you can do. It is often about who you know. Uh, your talent will get you there eventually, but you need to network and a lot of times you can only do that if you're a student, which is the main reason I'm here, is for those networking opportunities to meet people and just to have my face out there. I guess along with that, having the network is if you know, even if you don't know your stuff is good, put yourself out there and just try. Just try. Just be out there, be outgoing, even if you're not an outgoing person. I'm not. It's a switch I turn it on and off. You got to do that. You have to present yourself as a competent journalist.
Yeah, and
That's
and
yeah.
I guess Richard, if you're comfortable, what were like some examples or the type of content that you provided to the J School as your work samples?
Yeah, so a lot of it was the protest photos I did back in 2020, which is what got me into doing photojournalism professionally. And I worked for a very small hyperlocal paper where there was only 4 staff members, including myself. So I had clips from that as well. But honestly, I think it was just my personal statement talking about my story as a fat, weird white kid with an afro that grew up in a poor family that joined the army to get the fuck away from my family, to be honest. That I think is what really helped me. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here. I know it's being
No,
recorded, so
you're
that
not,
I
but we're gonna pray. But thank you, Richard. Yeah, so like Richard put up a really good point is that the application process isn't just, okay, I am this X, Y, and Z on my resume, on my CV, on my whatever. This is it's a whole process, and even though you might not think that you are the perfect candidate, no one is perfect, right? Um, except
yeah,
Beyonce.
I think a lot of us can probably attest to this. Maybe except Robert, who has already gotten in. But I never thought I was going to get into this program. So I applied, and then I thought I was never going to hear anything back, and then I heard back. So
I cried when Lisa Armstrong called me. I literally cried.
I'm
I out
jealous.
of happiness.
I'm jealous because y'all got phone calls. We didn't get phone calls.
Oh, they should do that.
I don't know. I got the email, and then I got a call from Ken like 3 months later. So Ken Light, he's the head of the photo program. For those who don't know, also an amazing documentary photographer
All right,
who sells
Lisa.
his books. So
Lisa, so what about yourself? What would you say?
I would be really, really clear about what you want and why you are applying to journalism school. That is something that we talk about a lot at Berkeley about how the power dynamics of journalism, you're telling other people's stories. You need to really know what your intentions are. You need to be really self-aware. You need to know your power, and you need to be really clear about why you're in this field because it's a challenging field to be in as well. And I think being really clear on that will help you craft an amazing personal statement that is going to supplement, the other pieces that you have that will showcase your talent. I worked, I like agonized over my personal essay because it was like really soul searchy, honestly. Like I really like my therapist was involved, my husband was involved. I had like readers on it, and I don't want to stress you all out that you have to like do that level of work. But I think I like it was really becoming clear and like, well, why am I gonna devote 2 years of my life to this? And that will help you get into journalism school, and it will guide you through journalism school, will help you figure out, like what you want out of this and how to get it and pick the classes and meet the people and work with the professors and do the kind of stories that you want to do.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Robert, um, what would you say? Oh,
Well, of course, my application was a little different. And my final interview, I was going around the world with my wife, and I was on the Indian Ocean, and Ed Wasserman called me to suss out, are you real? Are you kidding us? Or you really want to come back after all this time? But the thing I had that these two people have just told you is I had a story about why I wanted to be here, and you don't have to, say that why I want to be at Berkeley, but it's why you want to go on and do the kinds of things that you can do when you get out of graduate school in journalism. I mean, you can write the same, essay at Northwestern if you wanted to, or Iowa Writers Workshop or something like that. The other thing that I've done while I'm here is I've already connected people with people that I know. And so you're going to meet people like me. Even if you don't meet me, there are going to be other people in the program who will go out of their way to help you do what these things are. And I suppose I'll continue to do that to anybody who asks me. But I would say once again that the professors that are here that I've met or that I've taken classes from are one incredibly well connected, and maybe that's important, maybe it isn't, but they're very smart and they know what is going on in the business because they continue to be in the business. As many of them, they write or they're on the radio or they do investigative reports like David Barstow and his crew. I would say that this is really a place to go. And like I said, I do have experience at the other top journalism schools or top writing schools, if you count places like Penn and USC, who don't really have journalism per se, but they have those kind of communications programs. So it is a signal place.
Thank you, Robert. And I will amend one thing you said because USC has the Annenberg School of Journalism.
Oh, it's journalism because the Annenberg School of Penn is communication. I guess it's Stanford that is communication and not journalism, right?
Under their communications department, they do
right,
have.
Right.
So once you get to Berkeley and once you become a Golden Bear, to everyone that out there in online and when this gets posted, there's a lot of journalism schools out there, and it very succinctly, everyone, I guess, what made you choose, like, what was that aha moment that said for me, financial aid. That's the number one thing that really helped me out, to be able to decide. And then also 2 years, a 2 year program was really something big for me to be able to develop my skills. Robert, since you're unmuted, do you really succinctly why was the Berkeley like the one that you chose?
Well, for one, I was already here, so it was the easiest path for me. My daughter, who was very skeptical of this, says, "Well, you could have gone to Temple and gotten your master's." I said, "Yeah, but that wasn't the point. The point was to go into a place that I really wanted to go, and in a town that I didn't live in. It was important."
Lisa?
2 year program, the conscientiousness of Berkeley, and location.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Richard and Pepper?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. As a veteran, my GI Bill pays for public universities, and I'm already a California resident. I only applied to Berkeley. That was the only place I wanted to go. For the location, I love the weather here. I love the Bay Area as a whole, and it's the number one public university in the country any given year. I mean, I guess it's between us and what, UCLA. So, but like, who wants to live in LA? Unless you already live there. I live there. I like it much better here, if that counts for anything. So,
all right, folks. So thank you very much to our panelists. A round of applause to you folks. Thank you for the participation today. And we're gonna go ahead and just I'm gonna go ahead and end this Zoom meeting. But before I do, or this recording, and before I do want to remind everyone, please look on our page, the same place that you found us to participate or to view this recording. We'll have more events. We're hoping to have an open house. We are having an open house in November. So if you're in the Berkeley area around the second week of November, pop on by. We're going to have professors and faculty and staff talk to anyone that wants to have a conversation about their tracks, about their work. Additionally, we will continue to have office hour sessions and advising sessions, sessions about funding, housing as well. And if you have any other ideas, feel free to message or email us at jpeers_admissions@berkeley.edu, as well as journalism_admissions@berkeley.edu for more information. And even up until the deadline, we are going to have office hour sessions. So if you're in panic mode, we will be there to try and help you out as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. And